Welcome, friends, to this Ventures course, the first one of this semester. We're really glad that you all are here and have assembled to hear Liz come and bring us information about creative worship. But I do want to say, make sure to remember to check out our other Ventures courses. We've got a couple of others that should be exciting coming up yet this semester. And so I'll let you check that website at mcpherson.edu/ventures, but please feel free to look ahead and to register for our upcoming courses as well. But that's all the time I'm going to spend talking about other things. Rather, I really want to welcome you, Liz, and introduce you and then hand it over to you. So friends, let me allow you to introduce you to my friend, Liz. Liz lives at the intersection of spirituality and creativity, and she's the one that was the church planting pastor with Wildwood Gathering, which has started in 2016. And there she's been trying to cultivate and reimagine faith community and create safe spiritual space for those who are on the margins. Liz has a bachelor in theater arts, a master's of library science, and a master's of divinity. And she describes herself as an overly ambitious gardener, mama to her 5-year-old daughter, and says that maybe her only fault is spending too much time on social media. How'd I do, Liz?
I'm pretty sure my social media usage is not my only fault, but it is the one I'm willing to admit publicly.
All right. Well, welcome to this Ventures course, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces, some that I know and some that I look forward to getting to know, and maybe even getting to know outside of these little boxes. It's always a challenge and a delight to be able to do courses and opportunities like this, to be able to connect with so many people across so much space. One of those little tiny gifts of the pandemic that allowed us to lean into and embrace a more disconnected and digital yet connected in other ways communities. So I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to share my screen, I think. And why can't I find it? There it goes. Okay. And you can all see that. That correct? Okay. Now, okay. Sorry. One of the parts I had not really, so if I do that, does that stop sharing? Okay.
It looks good here, Liz. So,
okay. As I was getting ready today, I realized, oh, I didn't try out if I can screen share and view my notes at the same time. So we'll see how this works. I think it'll be all right. We've all done the what this is, and I'll begin with a little bit of centering. Each time Wildwood gathers, I bring us together with these words that I've slightly adapted for this community tonight. Tonight, this is a community of faith, and here we are invited to show up exactly as we are and exactly as we are becoming, whole and holy. And here I would invite us to take just a brief moment. How many of us are there? You said, Enton, there's 20 something?
That's right.
So let's see if we can very briefly say names and pronouns, and that may be new to some folks. It would be sharing how we can address you. It's she, her, him, his, them, their. Just making sure that we're welcoming all of us into this space and being respectful in how we know each other, especially because all we get these little boxes. So assumptions can be really dangerous in spaces like this. So name and pronouns, and then what your current favorite song or performing artist is. And I don't know how to make this go round, Enton.
We all should be seeing the same order, so after you should be Dale. Is that looking on your screen? So we'll just go right on down the line and it should work. So Dale, kick us off.
Dale Posthumus, he, him. I have, in the past little over a decade, have gotten into K-pop, the Korean pop scene. And I really enjoy it, actually.
Bruce Rosenberger, he, him, his, Columbus, Ohio. Composer is Arvo Pärt, and the particular composition is Fratres.
Sorry, it helps to unmute. Beg your pardon. So my name is Tom August, he, him, Baltimore, Maryland, and gotta be, just gotta be, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
I'm Mandy Deal. I'm from Modesto, California, and I have a lot of different singers I like, but the thing that comes to mind are the Chicks. I like the Chicks. Oh, and it's the she, her, she.
Lisa, over to you. And you just need to unmute for us.
Sorry about that. I'm Lisa Krieg. I am she, her. I enjoy Françoise Hardy as a French singer. I don't know of a particular title. I just love whatever she sings. So I don't know. She's really really good. I like her.
Carolyn Schrock, McPherson, Kansas, she, her. I just like the hymns by brethren authors, brethren songwriters.
Cynthia Mason and Frederick, Maryland, she, her. What's odd about me right now is that I'm trying to hold on to Christmas as long as I can. And I've been listening to a CD whenever I get in the car that has Celtic Christmas tunes in it.
I'm Pastor Rick. We're from Shenandoah County, Virginia. I'm serving at Cedar Grove Church of the Brethren, Mount Jackson, and refer to myself as him. And I guess my favorite song of all time Christian songs is They Will Know We Are Christians by Our Love.
And I'm his wife, Beverly Funkhauser, and I'm also pastoring at a different church, Round Hill Church. And I'm she and her. And I like Mercy Me, I Can Only Imagine. It's one of my favorite songs.
Janet, you're still muted, so unmute for us.
Thank you. Janet Shaver, she and her. I can't say I have favorite artists. I have different music genres I like for different things. I like calming spa music when I just want to relax in the car, and I dance for exercise. So I love Motown because that's just from my era. So, and I love lots of Christian music, the hymns.
Hi, I'm Jody Rice from Lidditz, Pennsylvania. I love a lot of genres. I would have to say contemporary Christian is my favorite. I sing a lot of those songs since I'm on the praise team at our church. And I also like Diana Krall, who's a jazz singer.
I'm Kendra Flory, she, her. I I play in a community handball choir, and we just had a concert on Sunday, so I have a lot of that going through my head right now.
Pardon me, Greg Bachman, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, Lancaster Church of the Brethren, he, him. The music I like is Broadway music, particularly Stephen Sondheim.
I'm Eleanor Hubbard, and I use she, her, and I'm from Boulder, Colorado. I'm trying to learn why Taylor Swift is so popular right now, particularly my grandchildren.
Linda Ziegler, Lidditz, Pennsylvania. In recent months, the love of God has become a favorite. I do a little bit of calligraphy, and it talks about the scribe, the quill, and the parchment. Give it a listen. The love of God is vast.
Alan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Alan Birnbaugh, he, him, from Williamsburg, Pennsylvania. I currently pastor the Williamsburg Church of the Brethren, also the Fairview Church of the Brethren. And I would say probably the old hymns of the church. I really enjoy those. So I don't have a favorite one. There's probably 8 or 10 I really, really enjoy.
Paul Kaufman, English River Church of the Brethren, South English, Iowa. He, him. I'm not into songs that much. I like songs, but I don't have a favorite.
Rhonda Craighead, I'm from Northern Virginia, she, her. I don't have any favorites. I like a whole variance of it.
The Eyes and Mice, Kalamazoo, Michigan, right over here. She, her, and I'm gonna go with Leonard Cohen. You Want It Darker, mainly just entering into Lent.
Okay.
There's a group of us here from the Modesto Church of the Brethren in Modesto, California. I'm Andrew. I'm he, him. Favorite song? Pastor. Oh yeah, Pastor. Also favorite group, Pink Martini.
Where are we at?
I'm Mike Munson, also at Church of the Brethren. According to him, his, he, whatever. I never had that one before. And according to Spotify, my favorite artist of 2023 was Jason Isbell. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
I'm Elaine Forcier, again from the Modesto Church way out west. She, her, and I think my favorite church music right now is from the Ione community, and things like Take Me As I Am.
Okay, last person from Modesto. Hi, I'm Mary, and she, her, and I'm listening to a lot of Stephen Stills right now.
Okay, over to whoever's logged in as FMC secretary, and I'm not sure who you are, so please, you can introduce yourself now.
Hi. Turn that sound off. Hi.
So, Sandra, are you logged in twice?
Sort of. Hi, I'm Sandra Hebert, and I'm here on my phone, but I'm here in the church secretary's office. Let me see if I can unblur us. So I've got a group of us here from First Mennonite Church in Hillsboro, Kansas. And I'll see what I can do to get us unblurred in a minute. I don't, if you want to, I can pass the phone around and have each person introduce themselves. I think we're supposed to talk about music we like, and I have found very little that I don't like.
My name is Aline, and I like a girl named Tom. Anything they sing.
And I'm Jan. I'm she, her, and I like almost all Christian music.
I'm Daryl. In Voices Together, I Dream of a Turning has become my favorite song.
I'm Christine, she, her. Daryl's referring to Voices Together, which is an essentially brand new Mennonite hymnal, Mennonite Church USA. And that's where I'm finding all of my favorite stuff too.
And I'm Sue. I'm the church secretary, actually. And I love the new Voices Together as well, but spend a lot of time listening to classical music.
Well, welcome to that whole group of you. And if you've got questions about setting up the text, Sandra, just private chat me and I'll help if you're having trouble getting that unblurred. Should be as easy as going from the video up and choosing unblur my video. In the meantime, we'll come over here to Annette. So Annette? Annette, are you trying to find that unmute button? There you go.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm Annette Dell and I'm from Nebraska. Let's see. I'm just a Sunday school teacher, but all of my siblings have been pastors, some in the Brethren Church. I'm she, he, her. And just in the last few years, I've been introduced to contemporary Christian music, which I thought I would never sing ever. But I have found that I really love a group called, it's the Kingdom. And they've got a song that's called Child of Love. And I've just enjoyed the energy in contemporary music. And I can sing a chorus 15 times and it doesn't bother me anymore.
Great. And I'm Anton Eller, he, him. I'm currently logging in from Palmyra, Pennsylvania. And I'm last. So Liz, back to you.
I think you missed two important questions though.
One of them being favorite music?
Yeah, he, him, and then favorite music.
He, him, favorite music. I'm not sure how to answer that one. So there's a couple of things I like. I tend to like Enya. I really love hymns, classical. There's a lot of different things. So
I realized I should have said that you could pass, and I didn't even give you that option, Enton. So thank you for letting me push you. As I said earlier, I'm Liz Ullery Swenson. I'm in Olympia, Washington, she, her pronouns. And I am on something of a music kick lately. And currently, I think my favorite is a song called No Judgment by Niall Horan. But I am going to see a concert by the Snuts next month. And they have a new album coming out. So I think that'll be a new favorite, but I have to hear it first. So I love hearing these snippets of your lives and who you are, and you all have excellent music taste, so that makes it even better. I am going to return to screen share here. Okay. And you all can see that, yes? Excellent. So what we'll be doing this evening is we'll begin by delving into what it means to be creative and how that we live in a world and how we can live in this world and this life with creativity. And I start here because I think we need to sort of maybe dispel some assumptions before we go and explore ways that we can bring art and creativity into our lives. I think we need to consider this as a model of how to invite your congregations to creativity too. So we'll sort of create a framework of how we're going to talk about creativity and what it means. So that's how where we'll begin. I oftentimes find when I walk into a congregation that's not my own, and I sort of bring this style of doing church or creativity differently, that I get a lot of blank stares and some anxiety. And so I want to make sure that in this space, welcoming you in, helping you feel comfortable with it, so that if you're going to take this home or take this back to your congregations, that you have a sense of how you may help them acclimate to this too. Some people adapt really easily to bringing in more creativity and pushing those boundaries and asking different things of them. And some people have a harder time. And so it's about a little bit about finding that balance of how we can invite, but not shut anyone down. Tonight will be mostly sort of theory-based, big picture ideas of why, in a sense, some biblical and theological reasonings for embracing creativity in how we do church. And then next week, I'll do more of like, here's some specific things that I've done with my congregation. And I also, in that, I want to make sure that I clearly state that while I'm doing a church plant, this time together is not about church revitalization. That's not what I am offering. I think that bringing some of these tools to your congregation can bring a different energy and some creativity. Obviously, it brings some new ways of thinking and relating with each other. But I would not want you to assume that taking the things that I'm offering as a package are then going to create some transformation in your church. I hope that I can give you some inspiration, and that the things that I share from my experience can then incite your excitement and help you find new ways of finding creativity within your own community. What I do in my context is going to be different than what you do in yours. And so I'm just hoping to sort of ignite your imagination for this. And if you really did come for church planting, church revitalization, you might want to duck out now. No hard feelings. You might be disappointed. Throughout these 2 evenings together, I will share poetry and scripture and quotes from books and authors and music and picture books. And I'm sure we will also share from our own spiritual and shared and sacred experiences. And in my context and in this space, all of them are sacred stories. And I'll delve into this a bit more, but I value each of them as offering spiritual wisdom to our lives and to faith journeys. And I hope that you can see them in the same way. I often say that the biblical scriptures are the stories that our faith ancestors shared forward, the things that were most important to them. And I invite us to think about what would be our faith stories that we would like to share forward to future generations. So bringing this idea of an expansive canon of spiritual texts. At the end of our time together over these weeks, I'll share a bibliography of sorts, so you can sort of see all of the things that I have have used and brought together in this, so you can have that to take into your faith journey. In the same way that I preface saying this is not about church revitalization, this also isn't intended to be children's Sunday school curriculum. And I think oftentimes when we talk about play and creativity and art in church, it's often directed towards being kid focused and children's moments or Sunday school downstairs. And what I really want to do is encourage us to bring this as intergenerational, that it's really important for grownups to play and for us to have space for creativity and imagination. And we don't get many places like that in our daily lives. And so really that would be my encouragement, is if there's something here that you think works with your kids, awesome. But really maybe start with your grownups, your big kids, and then invite the younger kids in to do it together. What I share are the things that I've done, and there's no right way to do them. I've made mistakes. I don't expect, I hope you won't take exactly what I've done and take it to a group of 90-year-olds and expect it to work out. One example that we do with Wildwood is sidewalk chalk. We'll go on a neighborhood walk and write sidewalk chalk, and that probably would not work with some folks in your congregation. So consider these to be ideas and adapt them in your context. And if you find after this that you run into some questions or not sure how to do that, you can let me know and we can kind of work through some of that together a little bit. And of course, I am in all of this speaking from my own theological lens, study, and experiences, and it might not fully align with your own. Your congregation can adapt and translate for your context as well. And like I said, if you hit a stumbling block in figuring out how to adapt or figuring out how to translate a theological lens or language, let me know and we can help sort of make that leap together. And as we spend time together, if you find that this isn't a place for you in your head and heart and spirit, if you need something different, I trust you to take care of yourself, to know what you need, whatever that means. And there is no judgment or critique on my part. And I always do my best not to take it personally, but what I would welcome and encourage you is to let Enton or I know just that you were stepping away or you need to change something. And I want you to know that your heart and mind and spirit matter. And I never want anyone to walk away feeling like they don't. I know how that feels, and I never want to leave you in a place with that. So if you find that you need extra support or feel like you need to step away at any point, send us a message, send me an email. I just want to make sure that you are okay. It's a lot of things. One last piece. I think Enton sent out an email sort of encouraging you to bring some paper, something to color with or doodle, markers, colored pencils, whatever. And if you had an opportunity, there was a coloring page that was attached to an email. And if you want to print that out, coloring and doodling while we're listening can create different neurological and memory connections. And so I'll share a little bit more probably next week, but at Wildwood, we always have the table that we gather around. We don't generally do circle space, we do like a table gathering, and we'll have brown like packing paper across the table, and there's always crayons and markers. And sometimes we're doing an intentional, like write this thing down on the paper, but oftentimes it's just a space to take notes and think creatively and doodle, and we get all kinds of fun art by the end of the gathering time. And so I want you to have sort of a smaller version of that at home. Okay. There'll be spaces for questions throughout this. I'm hoping that my timing and pacing will work out. I'll try and Enton will keep me in check, and I'll help keep the rest of us, keep us moving and in check as well. I would like you to take a deep breath, wiggle your shoulders, maybe move your feet a little bit. Take a deep breath and arrive fully in the place where you are. Fully in the place where you are and sensing a connection that binds us together across the distance. We begin with a piece of scripture, and I'd ask, is there someone that would like to read this for us?
I can read it.
Good, go ahead, Jody.
Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but the earth became chaos of emptiness, and darkness came over the face of the deep. Yet the Spirit of God was brooding over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Light, be," and light was. God saw that light was good, and God separated light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness night. Evening came, and morning followed, the first day. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, to be like us. Let them be stewards of the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, the cattle, the wild animals, and everything that crawls. Humankind was created as God's reflection. In the divine image, God created them.
Thank you. As I'm sure you noticed, we skipped over a lot, but I wanted to set the stage of where we're going from here. I'm going back to my notes here. It's easy to see, I think it's easy to see God as an artist when we read these words and imagine the land and sea and expanse of mountains and the depths of the sea that are alive with animals and plants. That dusting of red on a ruby-throated hummingbird and the way that the clouds move across the sky, the vivid sea coral, and for you folks from Kansas, that expansive prairie. And this picture here is, I took from an airplane this fall somewhere over northern Canada. I'm assuming it's the Canadian Rockies. We weren't flying low. We were flying at normal airplane height. The mountains were just that tall. And it was really incredible to be able to look out the window and just see this miraculous creation and art of God. And theologian Sallie McFague proposes that we not only view God as an artist, but as also reflected in all of creation. And invites us to encounter the planet and all things as the body of God. And she writes, everything can be a metaphor for God, because no one thing is God. The body of God is not the human body nor any other body. Rather, all bodies are a reflection of God. To see creation as the body of God, we might begin to see the marvels at our feet and at our fingertips, the intricate splendor of the alpine forget-me-not or a child's hand. We might begin to recognize the extraordinariness of the ordinary. We would begin to delight in creation, not as the work of an external deity, but as a sacrament of the living God. We could see creation as bodies alive with the breath of God. And she goes on, we would then have an entire planet that reflects the glory, the very being of God. We would have a concrete panorama for meditation on divine glory and transcendence wherever we looked, whether at the sky with its billions of galaxies or at the earth, every square inch of which is alive with millions of creatures. Or into the eyes of another human being, we would have an image of divine grandeur. And McFague invites us to see God not only as the creator of the heavens and the earth, but as reflected in creation, in heaven and earth and everything in between. And when we are in awe of a sunset or a mountain range, as I did on the plane, and yes, when we look into the eyes of another person, we are in awe of the creative being of God. We are bodies alive, all of us, all of the earth is a body alive with the breath of God. And just as both creation stories in Genesis tell, we too are creations of God. We are formed from that dust of the earth and made in God's own image. And so we too are reflections of the glory and the being of God. We are created in the image of a creator. We are created in the image of an artist. And so we too are creators and artists. My dad and my sister are incredible visual artists. My dad does this amazingly intricate paper cutting, and it's just it's mind-boggling how he does it. And my sister does these illustrations and watercolors. And you know, growing up, my uncle would do these like colored pencil illustrations on all of our Christmas presents, and so we have like this whole stack of these Christmas present illustrations. And it just, I grew up with this standard of a high standard for what art could be, should be in my mind. And, you know, I don't know what your experience was, but, you know, in my elementary experience, you go in and they teach you about these really famous, really accomplished artists, and then you're supposed to like copy or emulate them. And I did not find that I was very good at that. And so it then became easy for me to think that I wasn't good at art in general, and that I wasn't then an artist. sort of as I grew up a little bit more and I began to think about it more, I began that maybe I just hadn't found my artistic medium. So I did some photography classes in college and I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. So maybe that's my art. I'm really good at cooking. So maybe that's my creative outlet. And yes, photography, even on the iPhone, which is kind of where my medium lands these days, and cooking and gardening and quilting and woodworking, all of these things are art. And at the time I was sort of fine with being like sort of an art, like art adjacent, right? I could be doing artistic things. But then I had this idea to create a church. And when it came to Wildwood, I really wanted us to do this sort of tactile creativity and art. And I wanted it to be a central part of our gatherings. And I wanted to be able to invite people to engage in that creativity. But I went into it and do still have some deep insecurities and this sense of imposter syndrome. For example, if I was in your place in this workshop, I would have like desperately wanted to take it. And if I had like been able to talk myself into taking it, I would start off by sort of apologizing that I'm not an artist and, I'm just here to learn and just taking notes. And I sort of then started to use that I'm not an artist as a way to sort of, I guess I would sort of became really forthcoming and forthright with those insecurities, and then would use it to normalize for other people. So you don't have to be an artist. I'm not an artist. I'm really not good at this. It doesn't matter. We can all do it. And that's important to sort of have that normalization, but it's also kind of self-deprecating. And I've kind of realized that's not a very genuine way to invite people into art either. Like, here, come do this thing that you're not going to be good at. And sort of what I have done over the past sort of several years at this point is to find a different way to reframe it. And when you're in your congregations, you don't need to, I don't want you to walk away from this time together expecting to feel like an artist, but I want to give you some inspiration to think about it differently. Our culture has put some really high walls around what constitutes like creating or creativity, art and artistry. And so I still have those sort of deep insecurities. And I feel like even in this workshop, right, like there are so many better artists in the denomination that why am I the one doing this, right? But in that reframing, I've come to this place of, I really want to embrace this idea that we are created by God to be creators. And just as, just as a writer is anybody who writes, and a runner is anybody who runs, and it doesn't matter whether you've run a marathon or written and had a book published, I want to make sure that what's important is that we recognize that an artist, a creator, is someone who creates, whatever that is. And that these are action words. They're not a job description, right? They are not an accomplishment. They're a thing that we can do. One of the places that I found the most inspiration and encouragement in rethinking is from recording producer Rick Rubin. And he has worked with a variety of artists. Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, someone mentioned the Chicks, he's worked with them as well. Weezer, Linkin Park, like his skills have a wide breadth of work. And in his studios, he's known for creating a space where artists can home in, not hone in, but home in on who they really are and what they want to create. And he helps people to transcend their self-imposed expectations around their own creativity and where it comes from and what it is and what it isn't. But most importantly, and what I found most important, is that he believes that creativity has a place in everyone's life. And it isn't about a specific output, but it's the relationship within and to the world. And he distills his career of wisdom. I think Janet just mentioned it in the comments or the chat, but this is The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And it's this, like, it's a hefty little book, but it's short little snippets and chapters. And I've been reading it for several months now. I pick it up, I read a little bit. I've got, you can't really see that, but I've got like sticky notes and highlights and underlines. It's a kind of a mess at this point, but it's become this touchstone for me to help me remember what it means and how we are creative. And he begins the book by saying, creativity is not a rare ability. It is not difficult to access. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human. It is our birthright. To create is to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. It could be a conversation, the solution to a problem, a note to a friend, the rearranging of a furniture in a room, or even a new route home to avoid a traffic jam. Through the ordinary state of being, we are already creators in the most profound ways, creating our experience of reality and composing the world we perceive. And I love that, right? We are created by God to be creators, and creativity is an ordinary and fundamental state of our being. The natural world, the creation of the body of God, we find the extraordinary in the ordinary, and all of life is alive with creativity and the breath of God, and so are we. And our job is, as people of faith and creators then, is to just pay attention. And I have another piece of, oops, there was my Rick Rubin quote that I missed. Like I said, I'll have all of these in sort of a bibliography of sorts. There's someone that would read this poem by Mary Oliver for us.
I will.
Thanks, Lisa. Go ahead.
The Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thank you. I want us to take a breath. It's a lot of talking and information that I just threw at you. And so again, wiggle those shoulders, stand up if you need to. Are there any sort of brief questions in this moment that I can get us caught up with? I'll stop sharing for just a second to see all your faces and make sure you're doing okay. No one's crawled under their desk of overwhelm yet. Yeah, Tom.
I really appreciate your words, and I guess mostly because I often feel like doing a creative thing in worship is even risky, or at least it feels risky. Now, I mean, you talked about not being some wizard at artistry, and that's me. So I don't know if anybody empathizes with what I'm saying, But I'm saying that what you're saying is making this more approachable, and I thank you.
And I hear that. I imagine most of you come from I would imagine all of you come from much more traditional congregations than I come from. But I also grew up in the church. I'm a pastor's kid, and I have a pretty solid grasp on where more traditional congregations are. And so I know that what I'm offering is probably several steps ahead of where you may be. And again, that's that sort of offering some inspiration, some ideas to get your imagination going. And as we move into next week, I'll begin to sort of translate some of this theory talk business into things that are actually doable and tangible. And I think that's where you'll probably find some things that, oh, I can take that and bring that into my space, or this is something that could work for us, and to begin to sort of ease your folks into how that might work. Are there any other sort of quick, brief questions here? We'll have some space, I hope, for dialogue and conversation at the end. All right, if we're feeling all right, let's carry on. So creativity, sort of art in general, or creativity as a practice, is, I think, like 25% like creating the thing. And it's 75% of a lens with which to view and encounter the world around us. And in the book, Rick Rubin doesn't explicitly speak from a religious sense or in a religious specific way. I find that he does use a language of spirituality. And I feel a deep connection to my religious context and spiritual context in that. And he articulates that he believes that the universe is this external creativity that is ever unfolding, and the world and everything in it pulses with a productive energy. And the only thing that matters is how we tune into it. And he writes, we begin with everything seen, everything done, everything thought, everything felt, everything imagined, everything forgotten, and everything that rests unspoken and unthought within us. It goes on, this is our source material, and from it we build each creative moment. This content does not come from within us, from inside us. The source is out there, a wisdom surrounding us and an inexhaustible offering that is always available. Throughout the book, when he talks about the source, he uses a capital letter S. And while he doesn't explicitly talk from a religious perspective, that capital letter S to me is reflected in the way we capitalize God, right? So source is a name, a proper noun, and not just the sort of common noun descriptor that we might think of, especially when we're talking here. It's hard for you to see what I'm talking about when you don't see the words, but capitalized S's are important, I think, in his writing. And he goes on, the act of creation is an attempt to enter a mysterious realm. A longing to transcend. What we create allows us to share glimpses of an inner landscape, one that is beyond our understanding. The spiritual world provides a sense of wonder and a degree of open-mindedness. The world of reason can be narrow and filled with dead ends, while a spiritual viewpoint is limitless and invites fantastic possibilities. The unseen world is boundless. The practice of spirituality is a way of looking at a world where you're not alone, he says. There are deeper meanings behind the surface. The energy around you can be harnessed to elevate your work. You are part of something much bigger than can be explained. A world of immense possibility. Spirituality, religion, God, source, that sense of being part of something bigger than ourselves, this feels very familiar, right? And so then the question is, how are we paying attention? how are we noticing that source of our being? How are we encountering and connecting with that source, that godness that is reflected in and through all things? How are we creating opportunities for that connectedness and awareness and paying attention for our own, daily spiritual practices, but also for our congregations? So here we're not even talking yet about creating a thing, right? We're not even getting to the point of having a productive something to walk home with. This is just a way of looking at the world with a creative eye, an eye towards seeing what we might not otherwise see. And so all of the pictures here are ones that I've taken. This is from the Hoh rainforest, a perfect illustration of a nurse log. And I've used this in describing wildwood as, we have traditional churches or churches that have sort of supported and sponsor us, and we get to be nurtured by them as we grow in this really incredible way. And, several hundred years from now, I can't wait to see what that trunk looks like as the original tree has decomposed, leaving this space underneath it. In a very sort of, I'll say a lot of what I talk about today is very simplistic, is very surface level. And so in doing creative church, or this way of encountering the holy, it is a tangible and ritual practice of theopoetics. And if you're just sort of maybe wave at me if you're familiar with it. Is there a general? Okay, which is great. Then you aren't going to be totally bored by what I say next. But so theopoetics has its roots in the Church of the Brethren, actually, and specifically Bethany Seminary. Scott Holland and Melanie May and Matt Gwynn and others have come out and been a part of the program there, and have brought it into a greater dialogue in the theological church worlds. And theopoetics is encountering God from that boundless inner landscape. Khalid Keith Perry, who was one of the ones that first encountered theopoetics while he was auditing a theology class from Scott Holland at Bethany. And so building off of that work, then he has become one of the leading or one of the voices that I look to in sort of wondering and developing my own curiosities around what theopoetics is. And in 2014, he wrote this book, a primer. It's a compilation of sort of leading perspectives and voices that are offering nuance and depth to this growing field of thought and practice. And he does a valiant job at the near impossible thing of trying to articulate something that by its own nature cannot be confined or contained to words. Theopoetics is this language of a thing, but it's not the thing. It's a spiritual metaphor. And Khalid quotes J. Denny Weaver, who writes, and this is up on your screen, a non-poet's definition of theopoetics might be that it is a hybrid of poetry and theology. But to call it that misses the mark. It is an entire way of thinking. From the side of poetry, it shows that ideas are more than abstractions. They have form, verbal, visual, sensual. They are thus experienced at least as much as they are thought. What one learns from the theology side of theopoetics has at least as much importance. One observes that theology is more than an abstraction. It is a way of thinking, visualizing, and sensing God, the image of God. Theopoetics brings together this way of encountering God and encountering poetry and art and creativity that is bodily. It comes from this soul, and it's felt, and it's emotional, and it can be imaginative. It's like in this place, in here, instead of oftentimes we get stuck in our heads. It's the creation, it's the creating, and it's the created, sort of coming into this place together. And one of the things that I think I find most resonant in the study of theopoetics is that in the introduction, it has very Anabaptist roots. It feels very familiar to our lens of the world. And in the introduction of the book, well, so back up for a second. The book then is sort of this collection of essays where he talks about different theopoets and different individuals who brought a specific context or lens or expertise into this larger study of theopoetics as an umbrella. And so in this section where he's introducing the work and contributions of Scott Holland and Melanie May, both of whom have deep brethren ties, Khalid speaks of the important influence of the Anabaptist tradition within theopoetics. And he writes, Anabaptists have traditionally affirmed that the ordering of the kingdom of God ought to have concrete, social, this worldly manifestations. So our history of faith in action, that we are Christ's hand and feet in the world, Brethren Volunteer Service and Heifer Project, that act of washing feet and doing church, doing it and doing a theology that is so important to our traditions. And I think these are ways that we just already embody our beliefs. We don't just talk about it, we do it. And we recognize that there has to be this strong connection between the thinking and the stories and the concepts and the practice meshed with the doing and how we live it and how we do it. It's an active thing. It's an action word, right? Our bodies then, for us, bringing this connection between sort of the heady version, the idea version, the theology, the words on the page, and bringing it together with this bodily sense of how we live it. Our bodies then become a site and source of spiritual knowing and divine encounter, and are then a life-giving source of our knowledge of God. Think about how I want to ask everybody for experiences. We don't have time for that, but I want to just pause for a second and invite you to think about one of the most spiritually transformative experiences of your lives. And I want to encourage you to be curious around whether it was an intellectual, heady sort of experience, or if there was some sort of physical component. One of the things that I asked at the beginning was around music, and a number mentioned music in the Christian context, or a lot of you mentioned the new hymnal, which is lovely, I love it. But this idea of encountering the holy, encountering God through music, and how that transforms our hearts and how that transforms our encountering of God. So sort of bringing to mind the ways that your faith has been transformed in a physical, bodily, doing, experiential way. We encounter the divine within these bodies. And when we silence or numb our bodies, then we are silencing and numbing the God within us. When we try to disconnect from our emotional and bodily experience of the divine, we are cutting ourselves off from the depth of that relationship with God and with the holy. Someone like to read this paragraph for us.
Re-examine all you have been told at school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your own soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem and have the richest fluency. not only in its words, but in silent lines of its lips and face, and between the lashes of your eyes, and in every motion and joint of your body.
Your body, our bodies are a poem. And those same bodies are also a prayer. And they are a source of holy encountering and divine knowledge that is entirely, uniquely our own. So then, how are we creating space and places that offer opportunities to encounter an embodied holy? How are we creating space for us to get in touch with the holy within us, to allow that godness within us to then flow from us, whether it's on paper or canvas, in dance, pastry, whether it's that solution to a problem or a note to a friend? When and where do we hold space and name the importance of our innate creativity and an opportunity to create something into existence that wasn't there before? I think it's especially important when we think about it in our own personal spiritual journeys. I think probably a lot came with the idea of taking some of these to your congregations, which is great. But it also, I think, has to begin in the here, right? It has to be something that you begin to practice on your own and creating space for your own body and soul and spirit to encounter. And then you can bring it to others as well. I want to share an excerpt of a, oh, what happened there? Are you, oh, okay. You with me? Okay. Somehow my screen got stuck or something. So I want to share an excerpt of this book by Melanie May. It's called A Body Knows, A Theopoetics of Death and Resurrection. It's hard to get your hands on. It's no longer in print. But if you can find it, I highly recommend it. And this is just sort of the first few portions of a much longer poem. This is called Standing. A word, I waited on a word, this word for this day, to come and craft a meaning, a message from me to you on this threshold. Throbbing, we stand, awaiting, acclaimed, together in hope. I waited and I was visited. All knowledge is revelation. So I still believe angels watch and keep us. Demons possess, and I still believe the shining brightness once called glory is possible, palpable. Since we inhabit a spirited space, a visitation you see late at night, at long last, daybreak, chronos cracked. I know this moves towards madness, transgression of appropriate ascription, word and deed. It is the breaking down, or is it up? The breaking of yes saying to what is male ruled and female reconciled, the breaking through as co-creators of what will be. My slides seem to have jumped ahead, so we will get to that break in just a moment. And in sharing all of this, this work by some of my people that I admire most as a person, as a pastor, as a writer of my own right, I feel a little, sorry, I feel a little embarrassed maybe by the sort of this, what I have shared with you is very overly simplified, and it is entirely incompleted, but it is an introduction to theopoetics, and I do not feel that I have done it justice. And I sort of maybe a little bit glad that Scott probably won't be critiquing this as he did when he was my professor. But nonetheless, creative church and the sort of spiritual practice is rooted in theopoetics. And I couldn't offer this this understanding or this idea or this practice without at least touching on the concept of theopoetics. And I encourage you to look into it more if this has sparked something within you. I'm happy to maybe in that bibliography, I'll also include a couple of resources for you to dig into. And last year or so, I think Bethany has created a certificate in theopoetics, which looks incredible. And I will probably be returning for that at some point in time. We are at a place now, if you would like to take a break. Hinton said he can give us a timer for something like 5-ish minutes. If you're in the Pacific time zone, maybe grab some dinner. From the East Coast, maybe some ice cream or tea, whatever you need to keep you going. We are we're nearing our end, so let's keep it pretty brief if we can. I want to make sure we have space for some conversation.
Great. You ready for us to break now, Liz?
Go for it.
Okay. I'll put a 5-minute timer on. Feel free to step away from your computers and mute your cameras, and we'll come right back. Okay.
Okay,
Good.
thank you all for coming back quickly. And if you're still getting back to your computer, I'll let you do that while I carry on, because what I'm moving into next is to just create some space for some questions from you. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a lot of background and context and sort of the foundation of all of this. And next week, we'll spend some more time with examples and resources and places that you might find creativity and imagination and how you're doing your work and how you're just going to run with it. So I just kind of want to bring us together in these last few minutes. Of course, it always goes so fast, right? I want to bring us together with some time to
Liz, I just lost your microphone for a minute there. But I think you were coming back. Try it again. It may be the connection is a little loose if you had earbuds out or something.
just, it popped over to my iPad. Yeah, it popped over to the iPad. So,
okay.
Sorry. Okay. I want to create a little space to just sort of talk about what it might look like for you to hold space for creativity and that broad sense, and not necessarily specific concepts or mediums or activities, but what would it look like for you or your congregation within your spiritual practice and your community to create space to invite in or begin to consider creativity in your own context? It's a big question, but let me know what you got. Or also questions is a great place to go to. Back up to maybe an easier question to ease us in. How are your doodles looking? Did you get anything down on paper? Have you colored at all? Lisa did some. Hinton did some. Nice, a sunshine. Ooh, music and yeah.
Moving and actually clapping their hands once in a while,
Liz, we just tried this past Sunday doing a contemplative prayer as our gathering prayer. And we were having a discussion during the break about how it went, how some people in the congregation were ready and some people were surprised by it. And so, thinking of bringing creativity in, it's like we will have to, you know, just continue on a slow path to bring it in, so that, you know, it's like it's not it doesn't shake everyone up during during the service. So yeah, that was kind of interesting that we were doing that in the break, talking about it.
You're already doing a little bit of it, yeah. And that's something like, you know, switching up how you do a prayer is an act of creativity in rethinking how you cultivate community and encounter prayer in that way. And that lots of people are going to freak out. I remember when there's a congregation who wanted to create silence as a part of their weekly prayer. And so just moment of silence after the pastoral prayer. And the pastor, you know, started with like 30 seconds. A couple weeks later, it was like a minute. And so over time, they got to like 3 to 5 minutes of silence in the middle of the service, which was great, but it took a long time to incremental shifts. And I think that's a lot of what, how we have to do it too.
There you go.
I was thinking maybe we need to kind of prime the pump, you know, let people know that we are going to be trying to be more creative and do different things. And it may be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but, and we, you know, be open and just see how it feels. And, you know, we're not going to do some of it every Sunday, but just to let people know so they have an expectation that there's going to be some things different in worship, so they're not blindsided maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important. And that's maybe what a little bit of what I bring today is sort of, you know, maybe take up some of these nuggets around God as creator and artist, creating us in God's image. Like that's a very sort of simple, in a sense, way to invite creativity into a community that maybe hasn't encountered it.
I would just like to caution us that that not everybody needs to move that slowly, that sometimes just doing things quickly, people jump on board. And even if they don't, sometimes it's just a way of moving forward, that we don't have to do it teeny tiny baby steps every time.
Yeah. You got to read your congregation. You all know your context, right? And I think, you know, one option might be to do like a special series, like a Lent series on creativity, right? Or if you need to start in a small group, and then that group can help bring those things into your larger congregation. There's lots of ways to sort of like practice it, I think. If you have an interim pastor or someone who's, you know, coming in just a special, oftentimes I'll go in as like a special preacher for a Sunday or something, and I'll bring a lot of this stuff with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm different, I'm new, I'm not going to stick around, so you can experience this, and then I'm out. and then you all can begin to see how you feel about it. And if it feels good and feels like something you might be interested in doing, then your community can begin to integrate it in ways that work for you all.
In our worship, we gather around a large 86-inch screen, and there are sometimes as many people on the screen in Zoom as there are in the room, although 2 weeks ago we were climaxing worship. It was the climax of a weekend retreat for our youth and their families. And in lieu of the pastoral prayer, I put the Zoom whiteboard on the screen and handed one of our high school kids a iPad, and she doodled on the iPad, which was replicated on the whiteboard on the screen and out in people's homes as the prayer for the morning. And it was different, but very, very effective.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I love it.
Go ahead,
John,
Jimmy.
you.
Experience a couple weeks ago, we had a youth who, young youth who experienced a special time at district conference in a story about Moses. And so what he did was he decided to write his own script, his own story. And from his perspective, and with the help of an adult, actually wrote the script and had 5 or 6 characters, and it was a play, and presented it to their church 2 Sundays ago. So allowing the young ones to come in and do their thing, and it was quite inspirational.
Awesome. Love it. So you all are already doing creative church, like, you know, you're already doing things. I'm just here to like encourage you. We have time for maybe like 2 more comments, questions, thoughts, concerns. Half of you all are tired, so.
Cynthia.
Yeah, in the last maybe 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how long it's been going on, folding paper cranes has become a huge meditation in my life, and sharing those with people in all kinds of places. This past year, when I was the delegate at annual conference, I was trying to fold paper cranes for several people that I ran into who asked me for them, and I ran out of time because they kept me so busy. So the last worship service, I was crazily folding paper cranes at the table and feeling horrible. Like, this is not what you do in worship. Like, this is not allowed in worship. I've never done anything like that in annual conference, much less another setting. And I felt really uncomfortable. And then after the service was over, a man who was sitting behind me and had been watching me the whole time was in a wheelchair, and he came to me and said, I used to do that before I had Parkinson's, and I really, really loved the watching you. And can I have some of those paper cranes, because I want to visit a friend who is dying and I would like to give him some. So I was thinking to myself, okay, if you needed permission, I think you received it there. But I do think I had a friend in seminary who used to say the ministry of play is the most important for serious Christians. We forget about how playful God is and how the joy of our faith should be shining through. And we forget to live in that creative spirit.
Amen.
One time I was preaching out of the book of Jeremiah. And so what I did is that it was a passage where Jeremiah is speaking about a potter. So what I had somebody do is actually come and fill a pot while I spoke the sermon.
Mm-hmm.
I did the Theopoetics certificate finished in 2018, and did find it difficult to express a definition of what Theopoetics is. But one thing that I remember Scott saying in a story, I guess in so many words, I'm just going to say it's a form of dialogue that opens us up to ways of connecting with one another, that goes beyond kind of a rigid, like, this is the way we do things, and this is the way we do things, and we end up doing this. Rather, it's a pouring out of creativity and sharing who we are and our perspectives through story and creativity. And it's what I took from it is that it is a form of dialogue that helps us be together in a more harmonious way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I'll say this bluntly, and you can take it or leave it however you want, but for congregations, for larger Christianity, for our denomination, when we have those places where we're sort of stuck in this legalism of control and power and who's right and who's wrong, and let's do it this way and only do it this way, I think that it's creativity and art and imagination and play is the only way we're going to get through that. And that, like you said, Kendra, is a different language. It's a different way of connecting. It turns off that fight or flight, right and wrong part of our brain and taps us into that creativity. And I think that's, you know, whether it's through paper cranes or, you know, clay pots or plays and scripts, like all of those pieces begin to kind of shift us around the edges in ways that are really, I think, magical and important. But I know we're almost done here. Enton's giving me a waving down.
Yeah, Liz, what I'd love for you to do before we run out of time is to make sure you have a moment to say what we can look forward to in the next class session, as well as I know you want to embody dismissing us in a way that fits with what you've said. So to make sure there's time for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a perfect segue into that. Like I said, next week we will do more of the things part of it, the activities of creativity that I've used within Wildwood. In the week in between, I would encourage you or sort of ask you to let the things that we've talked about percolate and settle into you. And I would love it if you could come back with a piece of poetry or a picture book. I didn't get to share the picture book I wanted to share tonight, but a picture book or a piece of poetry, a story, a piece of music. And we won't have time to share all of them, but have it be something that you have on your mind when you come back in. And if you're preaching regularly, maybe have it be something that you might use with the liturgical season or lectionary. If it's personal, spiritual journey, something you might use there. Just something that might be different than what you normally would reach for in thinking about sacred stories, spirituality, text, theology. Enton, you have my contact information if you want to share it with everybody. If they have any questions over the next week or so, I can try and do a little bit of responding to questions. And I want to send you off this evening with another piece of poetry, as I've I think I've modeled tonight that sort of we can weave poetry in between all of the things that we say. It is a natural flow into how we do our time together. So this is it's called The Body, and it's by J. Hume, and it's from his collection, The Blackwater Sermons. This body is a cathedral holier than those made by human hands. This body is a cathedral holier than those made by human hands. This body is undergoing a personal reformation. This body is enduring a modern iconoclasm. This body is being remade in a new shade of beauty. This body is altering its archways. This body is reverting old changes. This body is fixing the damage. This body is filled with prayer. This body holds relics of saints. This body turns sunlight to sanctuary. This body is built out of bondage. This body is still a cathedral. This body is still holy. This body is filled with worship. May your bodies find rest and ease this evening, and I will see you next week. I can hang on for a few minutes if you have any last questions. Thank you for spending your evenings with me.
Thank you, Liz. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place.